Redditors who have been cheated on, how did you find out and what did you then do? She cheated on me with 3 guys while I was out of town for 2 weeks for work. When I got home, her sister and her sister husband picked me up from the airport. Her sister proceeded to tell me everything. My ex-girlfriend for 4 years cheated on me. I found out because her little daughter, 4 years old, said that she's seen mommy and another guy in bed together. The little girl really loved me and what she did is unforgivable. Poor child doesn't need men coming in and out of her life. He told me. We were long distance at the time, and I just picked him up to go over to my friend's lake house after driving 12 hours to get there. We were meeting the rest of the group that night. I felt like I should be mad, but wasn't too upset. He felt terrible, I was mostly confused and shocked. We went through with our plans for the weekend anyway, partly because we didn't know what to do, partly to avoid making things awkward for our friends. By the end of the trip, we knew we were staying together. A year and a half later, we live together, and things are good. The only lasting effect is that I understand my own feelings on monogamy a lot better now. I caught them kissing in the apartment, in another room to which they snuck into, during my fucking birthday party. Quality people, really. My boss told me that one of his exes hooked up with a guy in the living room to their apartment while he was home. She thought he was at work when in fact he was sick and throwing up. He saw them fucking on the way into the bathroom. Was informed by a friend. At first refused to believe it, thought she was a saint lol, yes I was an idiot. A few days went by, the friend informed me again that she was cheating, once again ignored and told the friend to stop spreading shit about my girl. Then 2 days later the friend shows up at my doorstep, hands me a USB and says, "I'm only looking out for you mate." Turns out the USB had nudes that she sent to more than one guy, and my friend was friends with one of them, so when he heard about how similar the 2 girls were he wanted to see her. When he saw her, well, he realizes that I was in serious trouble. I was convincing my mom back then to let me marry her, haha, I was just a kid back then myself, 1990. Needlessly to say, my friend used his Sherlock skills to investigate and found out that she has multiple guys in her life. I called her that night, cut all ties with her. Sadly, she was better at convincing people, and most of our common friends boycotted me because the story that got to them was that I was the cheater and she was the one who dumped me. Lost a lot of good friends, though, considering they sides with her and never cared for my side of the story. I think they weren't good. Even to this day, when I happen to be at an event where some of those old friends are, I get the disgusted looks from them. His phone went off while he was in the shower. I took a peek and found a photo of a naked woman. He had been sending dick pics and they'd been basically text fucking for ages. I got in the shower fully clothed with him and held the phone up to his face under the water. I took off my engagement ring and tossed it down the drain. Found out later that not only had he been in contact with this trollop for the duration of our relationship/engagement, but had fucked her on each of his family camping trips. She was his fucking cousin. I get the heebies just thinking about it. Dodged a fucking bullet there. I found out after we broke up that she cheated. Honestly, it didn't come as a surprise. She was getting super distant and I realized that I was replaced. The girl who my ex cheated with thinks that we're still friends. Yeah, no, fuck off please. She was slowly going out with friends more and more. When I finally decided to see where she was going, I found out she'd been fucking this guy and was planning to move cities with him. She was living with me at this point, so it kinda sucked. I just told her to get the fuck out and kept to myself for a few months. She called me right afterwards trying to apologize. We had been dating for 3 months and she went to get some of her shit from her ex's place, and they ended up fucking. Like an idiot I took her back, but I ended up leaving her because she was a really shitty person. Couldn't be happier. He cheated on me when I was 6 months pregnant. The girl was 18 bloody years old. I found their messages and some seriously cringe pics. I mean, for fuck's sakes, if you don't got it, don't flaunt it. So I threw his phone in the pool and told him to fly a kite. Best thing I ever did. I've been cheated in a few times. She told me she got drunk and hooked up with someone. I immediately ceased all contact with her. Never talked to her until recently. A few months ago I spoke to her a sentence or two on Facebook and that was it. I miss her but mostly don't. It was actually the first girl I was with after my first serious, 2-year, relationship. I really liked her. We hung out for about half the semester before becoming friends with benefits. I kept trying to go on dates, make it an actual relationship, etc. until I noticed a lot of condoms missing and unaccounted for. That's when she told me that she had been sleeping with her ex the entire time we were together. Apparently sometimes on the same day. Not me but this guy on New Year's Eve. He, his girlfriend, and their 2 kids got on the bus and he proceeded to yell slurs at her. Close your legs, don't touch anyone. Shit like that. He said she had cheated on him with 2 other guys. He was obviously trying to humiliate her and the lady just sat there crying. I told him that nobody on the bus cared and he should stop making it everyone's business. Eventually he shut up. Who knows if she actually cheated on him like he said she did. But that isn't okay to do, especially in front of your own kids. Don't humiliate your partner in public like that because I can assure you that it's really just a nuisance and no one cares. First real girlfriend, 3 years. It was a one-time thing as far as I know, and I do not want to dig into it any deeper as it was quite some time ago. Pretty much she told me she had to study for a very important exam that night. Like any reasonable human being, I didn't think anything of it and went on my way. We had something planned that night and she ended up canceling, so I just stayed home. What I found out is that she wasn't in fact studying at home but out somewhere else, and the only reason I found out is because maybe 2 weeks later we had a party at our apartment, and once the liquor started flowing one of my friends took me out to my balcony and said he has something important to tell me. Ended up showing me pictures of her with this guy. Obviously wasn't explicit in the act, but it was very obvious what was going on, and I didn't know what to think. I felt seriously hurt since I thought we actually had something special, you know. After that I called her out to the balcony and said, hey, come look at this real quick. I could see the color drain from her face. I ended up just cutting it right there. It was a rough night for me, but maybe a month later I ended up running into her and of course we got to talking and we hooked up. Kinda got the relationship going again, but it just was never the same. The physical attraction was almost completely gone. I don't know, hard to describe. So we just ended up cutting all contact. It was a pretty shitty time. I gained a good amount of weight, but eventually the emotions all went away. I started taking care of myself again and haven't had a serious relationship since, and not looking for one anytime soon. I'm cheating on you, and I wanna break up and fuck other people. Cool. Feels bad man.jpg. He told me almost immediately after it happened. I told him he's never allowed to have contact with her again and stayed with him. The relationship was pretty shitty after that though, and I never fully forgave him for it, so now I know better than to stay with a cheater. Even if they never do it again, it's not really worth it. Wife's best friend told me that my wife had been cheating on me with a coworker for 2 years under my nose, and even while she was pregnant with our son. I know he's mine because he looks just like me, and her affair was with someone of another race. I could have tried to work it out if it was a one-time drunken fling or something, but not a 2-year affair, so I filed for divorce. My wife gave up our son to me, and moved out of state. He was 2 at the time, and I've raised him on my own with no help from her, financially or otherwise, for the last 15 years. She got a bit distant and uninterested in intimacy, which is always a bad sign. Then I did something nice for her and she got all sad about not deserving it. I would assume it was guilt. I was pretty suspicious at that point and broke up with her the next day because I assumed something had happened. A very short while later a roommate of hers tried to get me to take her home and spilled that my ex had taken another guy home. Then, assuming, correctly, I would dump her, had basically started a relationship with a third guy the last week or 2 before we broke up. That's the only time I was cheated on and found out, and I'm pretty confident the only time period. However, the communal living aspect of college lets you see this shit go down 100 times a year, so the signs get pretty clear. Anyone that gets upset and says don't you trust me is both cheating on you and a bad person. Anyone that gets withdrawn from you, but not everyone is cheating and feels shitty about it. My girlfriend and I had an argument after I found some floppy disks. This was early 2000s, with very erotic and suggestive writing to her ex on them. She left the house to cool off. While she was gone, I decided to cook dinner but wasn't sure on the recipe, chili, and called her cell phone. I heard her answer, but she couldn't hear me and there was some weird static. It seemed she hung up, but I could still hear her talking to the ex I mentioned before. They were laughing and making fun of me. I confronted her about it when she got home and she denied it, until I started quoting what they had been saying. Ah, the look on her face. I had this really cool outside cat that would hang out with me in my workshop and on my porch every morning. Over time she started to come around less and eventually I only saw her once a week. One day I walked over to my neighbor's garage to see he was feeding her and chilling out with her. He had a whole nice area set up for her in his garage. He had fancy food bowls, little cat toys, and the expensive cat food.